You're listening to Systemic Era Podcast. The failure was designed.
The Party of Family Values just covered up unspeakable crimes by Tara Dublin. If this week has proven anything, it's that the entire Republican Party minus Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky is guilty of treason and manufacturing a war with Iran to deflect from being accessories to the sexual assault of women and children. Several new bombshell releases from the Epstein files brought even more allegations about President Donald Trump, including testimony from a woman who said that as a young victim, she fought back by biting him on the penis. Another Epstein document details underage sex parties allegedly hosted at Trump's golf course. Trump vehemently denies wrongdoing, of course, but it's still weird that a lot of his clown cabinet talk about the Sinaloa cartel when it comes to the immigration discussion, and how ICE is only going after the most violent criminals, when no, they aren't, said everyone who's seen the footage of the murders of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, when they could just read the Epstein files. This is what Republicans are refusing to address, and all of this is apparently fine with Trump's Republican enablers, who are ritualistically shredding our democracy because, checks notes, we do not know why. Actually, the reason you missed this, dear reader, is that a manufactured distract war is happening in Iran, and possibly another one is about to pop off in Ecuador. Also, Trump finally fired puppy killer Kristi Noem for lying about her $220 million cosplaying ad campaign and replaced her as Secretary of Homeland Security with someone even less qualified, Markwayne Mullin, the junior senator from Oklahoma. I wonder if Mullin will be obligated to offer Corey Lewandowski free rides on that tricked-out DHS jet now Kristi's been grounded as a special envoy, which also sounds like a gross thing to make her husband super embarrassed. If you're not familiar with Mullin, he's a former pro-mixed martial arts fighter who Democrats nonetheless allege wasn't so brave on January 6, and who needs to stand on a box to feel like a big boy whenever he finds himself next to an actual grown-up. None of this has to be happening, but both Senate and House Republicans used their razor-thin majorities to veto bipartisan war powers resolutions and the public release of sexual misconduct reports involving members of Congress. So, to reiterate, the Republican Party, which calls itself the Party of Family Values, which claims to be pro-life in the pursuit of protecting children, and which wants America to be a Christian nation, is helping cover up unspeakable crimes against women and children by bombing children in Iran. Trump doesn't care about those deaths, the deaths of our service people, or the impending deaths of Americans on American soil if Iran retaliates here. GOP works for us, boss. I'm old enough to remember when the Republican Party behaved mostly like human beings who understood the assignment. They had informed and intelligent political discourse with their Democratic colleagues, without devolving into grade school bullying, insults thrown in public. I contend that without social media, Trump would still be pulling focus on the New York social scene by acting like the chauvinist and womanizer he's always been. The highlights of his life beginning and ending with giant headlines in the New York Post. Remember when Republicans spoke truthfully about Trump? I do. It's on video and everything. YouTube www.youtube.com. They knew what he was. And, dear reader, I posit that every one of them still knows what he is. Remember when the Russians hacked the DNC and RNC servers but only released what they found about the Democrats and held on to compromat on the GOP? Guess who got his tiny hands on all that blackmail? Why, Putin's puppet. That's who. One by one, Republicans running for president in 2016 started dropping out of the race, even those still polling pretty well against Trump. You know the timeline. Trump should have been held accountable by the media, but they let him bully them instead. The RNC should have yanked him from the campaign when he mocked a disabled reporter. He should have been stopped after the Access Hollywood tape. But James Comey agreed with Susan Sarandon that Trump would just be more interesting and released Hillary's emails. Trump should have been stopped a million other times and he still hasn't been stopped, And look where we are now. His tariffs have tanked the American economy. The February jobs report showed a dramatic drop in new jobs created and boosted the unemployment rate to nearly 4.5%. It's fine. We don't need a functioning society if you can own the libs, right? Every decision Trump makes comes with a body count. All Americans should be asking why the Republicans refuse to stand up to him, because their fealty is glaringly obvious. Is the compromat on them as bad as what's been found about Trump in the Epstein files? There's nothing you could do to make me turn against my country, no amount of blackmail or bribery. But then again, I didn't participate in the world's biggest and most abhorrent cover-up. I never met Jeffrey Epstein, and I don't hang out with anyone who knew him. However, I am a tax-paying American citizen, as well as a member of the indie media. So please join me in demanding all Republicans be forced to say under congressional oath whether they're loyal to Trump or to America, because it's painfully and abundantly clear that it's impossible to be both. Trump has never been a take one for the team guy. He's a make the team take one for me guy. It's time for that to stop. Tara Dublin is a political writer/commentator based in Portland, who has been blocked by Donald Trump on Twitter since August 2015 and can occasionally be heard as a fill-in host on Sirius XM Progress. She is also the author of The Sound of Settling, a rock and roll love story available at taradublinrocks.com.
Our analysis, the art of hyperbole and the politics of deflection. In what reads like a fiery sermon delivered from the pulpit of partisan politics, the article in question offers a blistering, albeit hyperbolic, critique of the Republican Party, its alleged treacheries, and its leader, Donald Trump. The author, Tara Dublin, presents a narrative so rich in vitriol and so lacking in nuance that it practically begs for a closer examination. Let's dissect the key points, shall we? The allegation of treason. The claim that the entire Republican Party, with the lone exception of Representative Thomas Massie, is guilty of treason and manufacturing a war with Iran to distract from sexual assault allegations is a bold one. Treason, legally defined, is a charge so grave and so rarely invoked that its casual use here undermines the seriousness of actual treasonous acts. The evidence for such a sweeping generalization lacking in this fiery opus. The Epstein files and Trump. The Epstein files undeniably contain disturbing revelations, and their association with numerous high-profile figures, including Donald Trump, warrants scrutiny. However, the leap from association and allegations to a declaration of guilt without the due process reflects a dangerous disregard for the principles of justice. The sensationalism surrounding biting incidents and underage sex parties does little to further a constructive conversation on accountability and instead fuels the flames of the partisan fire. Immigration and the Sinaloa cartel. The author's critique of the Trump administration's focus on the Sinaloa cartel in immigration discussions, juxtaposed with the tragic murders of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, attempts to highlight perceived hypocrisy. Yet, this argument is muddled by its own conflation of varied and complex issues surrounding immigration policy and ICE's operations. A more nuanced analysis would have served better than a blanket dismissal. The Distractor War and Kristi Noem. Dublin's narrative takes a sharp turn into the realm of the absurd with the mention of a manufactured distractor in Iran and an unrelated firing of Kristi Noem over a cosplaying ad campaign. This segment reads more like a satirical jab than a serious critique, obfuscating legitimate policy criticisms with fantastical elements. The core of the argument, accountability. Beneath the layers of hyperbole and sensationalism, there lies a legitimate call for accountability. The author rightly points out the refusal of Senate and House Republicans to address bipartisan war powers resolutions and the public release of sexual misconduct reports involving members of Congress. This is where the critique finds its most solid ground, highlighting a concerning reluctance to confront uncomfortable truths within the halls of power. The conclusion, a demand for loyalty oaths. Dublin concludes by calling for all Republicans to declare their loyalty under congressional oath, a proposition that, while dramatic, skirts dangerously close to the kind of loyalty tests that have no place in a democratic society. It's a conclusion that, rather than fostering dialogue or understanding, seeks to deepen the divide. In conclusion, while Tara Dublin's article is driven by a palpable sense of outrage and a demand for justice, its reliance on hyperbole, sensationalism, and partisan attacks detracts from its potential to contribute to meaningful political discourse. In the end, it serves as a reminder that in our pursuit of accountability and truth, we must not lose sight of the principles of justice, due process, and the nuanced understanding that complex issues demand. Without these, we risk becoming the very forces of divisiveness and obfuscation we aim to critique. You've been listening to Systemic Error, thanks to Raw Story for today's article, with the automated voices of Amy and Ryan. Thanks for listening.